minutes after 7. How are you doing? This is Kenya's biggest conversation. This is the Situation Room on Spice FM, which is celebrating 4 years from yesterday. This whole week, it's our birthday.
Yes, it is.
And everybody's got to recognize that. Thank you very much, everybody who supported us and tuned in to Spice FM for the last 4 years. We've been on air now for 4 years on this show. Spice FM has been on air for 4 years. City, not a small thing, huh?
It is no small feat, but it wouldn't have been.
You can now go to kindergarten.
Yep. Yeah. Umri umefika.
At 4 years.
At 4 years, you can now go to kindergarten because your hand can go around your head and touch your ears.
Bas.
So we hope.
So we hope. Welcome, everybody. If you're tuned in on Spice FM, or if you're joining us on KTN Home, those who are joining us online on YouTube and Facebook, Karibu Sana. We'll also tell you about what's happening this weekend, the 26th of August. Something big is happening.
Yes.
What is this?
We are going west.
West.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
We're going to Nakuru County, and you know what's happening? It's Choma Nanini City.
Ngoma.
Choma Nangoma happens outside of Nairobi for the first time. So it's a product, it's an event. It's music, it's partying, it's food. And it's usually in Nairobi, and it's under the umbrella of Radio Maisha. But this time we're saying, you know what? Let's have some of the greatest talent come out for a night of Choma Nangoma. And it's happening at the Rift Valley Sports Club this year. And it's 800 shillings. www.ticketsasa.com is where you can get your tickets. And it's going to be great. Otile Brown. If for Otile Brown alone, Ndu will go to Nakuru.
Otile Brown.
Ndu will go to Nakuru.
Bas.
So you can imagine them and many more out for Choma Nangoma this year.
For me, it's the OG himself, Calligraph Jones, is going to be there. Why, my friend? Nadia Mukami is going to be there, and others. City for you? Otile Brown.
Well, let me go with what the two of you are going with.
Those like City who may not make it to Nakuru, Automac is having an open day this weekend here on Popo Road, South Sea, near Bellevue. Automac, which is a subsidiary of CFAO, which was previously known as what? Automac? Toyotsu.
Toyotsu Motors.
Yes, they sell, what do you call those vehicles? Pre-owned vehicles.
Yes.
Yep. So they're having an open day, and they have all these pre-owned vehicles. Their checklist is mileage and service history, braking systems, exterior, interior appearance, and engine compartment, transmission, tire condition, battery system, lighting system, accessories, audio alarm systems. Take your vehicle there. They will do those checks for you. Also go there, and if you're looking for a new vehicle, my friend, just go. A pre-owned vehicle. You know, in Kenya, new is as long as you're driving it for the first time and
new.
owning it for the first time. Akona gari mpya ujamaa.
Number plate is new.
Ni KD.
In KD.
Bas.
That's all that matters.
That's it. That's all that matters. All right. Let's have a conversation now about the Nubian community in Kenya, in Kibra constituency. So Nubians have been in this country for many years. And there's a community that has been living in this country for many years. This community now has claim and legitimate claim to a piece of land for a number of years. And now there's a government plan to put up affordable housing and upgrade the Kibra slum for a couple of years. Issues have arisen out of this. The Secretary General of the Kenya Nubian Council of Elders is called Ibrahim Yunis. He's with us in the studio. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
Welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation.
I'm happy to be here.
Karibu. Dr. Ahmed Kalebi is the chairman of a task force on the operationalization of the redevelopment of an affordable housing project in the same area. Dr. Kalebi, good morning.
Morning.
Good to have you on the show.
Good to be here too.
Welcome to the hot seat of the Situation Room.
Very nice to be here and ready for the conversation.
Very good. To begin this conversation, let's go to Burkina Faso. City Muga has the day's proverb from that country.
Yes, the whole of this week, our proverbs will be from the country of Burkina Faso. Used to be called Upper Volta from around 1958 to 1984, but it's now called Burkina Faso. I will tell you why it's called Burkina Faso in due course. But for the proverb, death is unable to speak to an ancestor.
Death is unable to speak to an ancestor. Ibrahim Yunis is thinking really hard about this one. Dr. Kalebi is thinking very hard about this one.
Nisha think tired.
Okay. What's your interpretation of this, Dr. Kalebi?
Death is in the land of the living. The ancestors are already gone, so you don't speak to where you are not. That's how I'm looking at it.
Right.
Put
Okay.
it well, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Death is in the land of the living.
Ancestors are not.
No, they are not. No.
Ibrahim, what do you think?
I concur with Dr.
Same.
Same.
So what do you think the Burkinabe are saying with this proverb? What's the lesson here?
I want to relate this to the Nubian community.
Yes.
You see, our ancestors came here 130 years ago. We are here, the fourth generation. So, going by what Dr. Kalebi has said, that our ancestors and ourselves who are here now, there's no communication.
There's no communication. You deal with your own realities of today.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Their realities are different.
Yes.
They're
You
gone.
know, Imeenda.
Yeah, Imeenda.
Yes.
Yours is yours now.
Yes.
Okay. Picking up from there, 130 years ago, this Nubian community came into this country.
Not into this country. 130 years ago in Nairobi. Actually,
In Nairobi.
into the country is about 160 years ago.
So give us the history of the Nubian community then, Ibrahim.
We trace our ancestry. First, I want to define Nubian is a collection of tribes.
Okay.
It's not one tribe. About 20 or so tribes. We trace our ancestry from southern Egypt and Sudan. You will recall that in history, the Anglo-Egyptians used to rule Sudan. So they used to come to Sudan to recruit slave soldiers, black slave soldiers. The word Nubi refers to a black slave soldier. So they used to recruit them into the Egyptian army, and then thereafter, they were brought to East Africa. We, the Nubians of Kenya, came through Uganda, and there's a group that came through Somalia. So we came to Kenya 160 years ago, basically to come and serve the British in the King African Rifles to fight in the First and Second World War. After the war was over, the Nubians wanted to go back to Sudan and Egypt, but the British told them, no. You stick around, something might crop up.
We might need you.
We might need you. So to induce them to remain, they allocated them 4,197.9 acres of land.
Point nine.
In Nairobi.
4,197.9 acres.
This land stretches from Langata Road, Mbagathi Road, Ngong Road, up to the War Memorial Cemetery. All the land in between is Nubian land. It was surveyed in 1917.
Let's say again. We start from Bagathi.
Yes.
And
City
then we
Mortuary
have
Museum. City Mortuary.
City
Not
Mortuary.
museum, but City Mortuary.
City Mortuary.
Yes.
We have Ngong Road on this side.
Yes.
We've got Langata Road on this side.
Kaski Mall.
Yes.
We go all the way
Yes.
Cemetery.
up to the cemetery.
Up to the cemetery. All the land in between.
All the way to Langata Cemetery.
Yes.
Yes.
The War Memorial,
The War Memorial Cemetery.
On Langata Road.
On
Langata
Sorry,
Road.
on Ngong
On
Road.
Ngong Road.
On Ngong Road,
Yes.
yes.
And then you go this way up to Roland Camp.
Yes.
Connect to Langata Road back. Yeah.
So showground is within your property.
Showground
So
is at the border.
showground is the border.
Is the border.
Yes.
So this other whole area we call Jamhuri
Yeah,
and the rest
Yes.
is all.
Nubian land.
It was Jamhuri was called Sarangombe.
Yes.
That's why they used to graze their cattle.
So who surveyed this land and gave it over to the
The
Nubian?
colonial government surveyed the land in 1917.
Right.
And in 1918, it was gazetted as a military reserve
For the Nubians.
for the Nubian soldiers and their families. And they were issued with shamba passes.
396 families.
393 families. They were given land ranging from 10 acres to 20 acres per family.
Okay.
By families, what do we mean? Because there's
Each
a person.
soldier.
There's a person who came to fight. That soldier
Yes.
is the one that we recognize.
Yes.
The 396 soldiers.
Yes.
and their families.
Yes.
Okay.
Because remember, they came from southern Egypt, northern Sudan. Actually, they were accompanying these guys. Remember, there was the Imperial British East African Company.
Yes.
And they will accompany them. And wherever they'll have garrisons, they'll settle. So there are garrisons in places like Bombo in Uganda. But let's talk about Kenya. So that's why you have Nubians in Mumias.
Yes.
All the way to Mazeras.
Yes.
In Mombasa. You have in Meru. Kakamega, Nyeri, whatever the soldiers were. But the biggest group, the biggest garrison was in Nairobi. So in 1917, they were issued with the land. It was gazetted in 1934 after being surveyed.
Okay.
Yes.
1934.
1934.
Right.
And that's why the names of those particular Shamba Pass owners were there. Just the same way the Indians and the Muzungus, who were here for whatever reason, were also given titles and the rest.
Okay.
But we didn't get the titles. We only got Shamba Passes, of course, being blacks.
So what does a Shamba parcel mean?
Thank you.
When you have a Shamba parcel, what do you have? Do you have a piece of
Pass,
documentation?
P-A-S-S.
Or a pass?
Yes. So the
Right.
Shamba Pass, you remember it was the natives of that time. So most people were expelled out of Nairobi. But the Nubians were among the few blacks who were allowed to stay within Nairobi.
Yeah.
But you had to be given a pass. And for them, they were given a Shamba Pass. So it's
Now,
actually the document.
That's all right. So it's a document
Yes.
that is still available to date?
Yes.
Okay. So this document then, after they were awarded these Shamba passes,
Yes.
the families began to live and to work and to operate.
They were already living in it. The gazettemen then allowed them to actually have a piece of document that gave them the recognition. Yes.
Okay. So from 1934, then it was recognized
Yes.
by the government.
Yes. Of the day. Yes.
What happened when then Kenya gained its independence some 30 years later?
Could you please pause? I need to understand something. What did this pass entitle you to?
The pass entitled the soldiers of the time and the families to live in the land, cultivate it, graze, because mainly they're farmers, and basically cohabit in the area. Yes.
Was there time limitation to this
No,
pass?
there's no time limitation. It's just basically like they can be issued and
There's a
allocated land.
freehold.
Basically, yes.
Was there any other community given such a pass?
So you remember what happened with the colonial government? There was reserves. So you'll have
African reserves.
African reserves. So it was
Yes.
the equivalent of the Nubian reserves. That's why when people say Ushagoyetu ni huku, for the Nubians Ushagoyetu ni Kibra.
Kibra.
Yes. For the Nubians in Kibra, Ushago is Kibra. And people find that very strange because how can a Ushago be in town?
Sure.
Yes.
All right, Ndu. Independence.
Thank you very much. Now, some 30 years later, Kenya gains independence, remembering that these Shamba passes had been awarded to the community under the colonial government.
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
So, did any of this change then when a Kenyan government then came into place?
Actually, things started changing even before then.
How so?
So there was a Carter Commission. I can't remember which exact year.
Carter Commission report of 1934.
1934 as well. Around the same time.
Carter, C-A-R-T-E-R.
Yes, Carter, one of the Muzungus then.
Yes.
So he was supposed to do some survey, and then they had this Nairobi plan, urban metropolitan plan or something of that sort. And in the process, then they said places like, on the Jamhuri Park, Ngumo, and all these developments that happened on Gong Road was part of the what the government wanted to do, the government of the day.
Yeah.
So the Nubians would be told, move from here, we want to develop this place. And they're like, but we have a Shamba Pass. No, this is what the government wants to do. So they kept being reduced and reduced until they ended up with only 700 acres, which became a slum, because they did not have proper land tenure. When the government of the day came in power, actually before the government of the day came into power, people like Jomo Kenyatta, they actually used to seek refuge in, and the Mau Mau, they used to seek refuge in Kibra, because it was like sort of like an enclave which was fairly safe, because the soldiers of the day, the other soldiers of the day will not come to Kibra. So they used to be hidden there. In fact, there's a place called Nyumba Kubwa, it's very historical. Now, when the government of the day came, these are very unfortunate but comical scenario or story. The president, recognizing the Nubians, actually invited them to State House. But being the arrogant soldiers, and I use the word arrogant affectionately for my people, we can be fairly arrogant. They said, why should we go to State House? This guy we have been hosting him here. He should come to us. We're not going to go to State House. And you're supposed to give them the title. So they never got the title. And then they also had this other notion. They said land is communal. Although they had the Shamba passes, but land was communal, and they used to say in Arabic or Nubian, Ardi is Ardullah, land belongs to God. You don't say this land is mine. So it was communal land according to them, and that's the beginning of a lot of problems that we have until today.
To add to what Dr. Arya said, the Carter Commission reaffirmed the Nubian ownership of 4197.9 acres, and also made a further recommendation that should there be need to relocate the Nubians, they should be compensated.
Okay.
Yes.
Now, let's look at some, internal housekeeping. So we see this struggle. It's happening. The now established Kenya government after 1963 starts to say we need to develop. We're building. Nairobi, it's building. It's getting bigger. How were members of the community bequeathing land to generation? Because now we're talking about, father leaving land to the son. We had not looked at daughters getting land at that time at all, right? So how were fathers leaving land? How were people developing there? How were people burying? How were people farming? How were people doing things that would normally happen on community land? So
basically, we had different villages based on the ancestral lines that they came from of these sub-tribes. So we have places like Kambi Aluru, Kambi Muru, Kambi Lendu. Kambi means a camp. And so this is the camp of the Aluru sub-tribe, camp of the Muru sub-tribe. And they'll be farming and living in those sort of areas. But what will happen is that as the government, let's say a typical example, Langata. So as Langata was being developed, the Nubians who are in Langata, they'll literally be evicted. You'll just be told, get out of here. We are developing this place. You'll be told to come back. And when they are supposed to come back in the developed areas, they'll be told, pay a deposit. And the guys don't have the money. They cannot even raise the deposit. And as a result, and corruption, you find the people who are in the civil service, people of the day, were the ones who took the land. The same thing happened in places like Ayani. And I can tell you, Ayani is a very traumatic name to a lot of the Nubians of a certain generation. They don't even hear that name because they came and built the place there and evicted the people, and they gave it their name. The place was supposed to be called Lomle. So you can imagine the disenfranchisement of the Nubians. And because the government of the day, until almost today, so to speak, we never had official recognition. So what will happen, they'll be told, you can't argue. If you argue, tutakurudisha kwenyu. And that is the beginning of problems that we have until now.
At this point in 1934, let's even start from 1917 into 1918 into the 30s.
Yes.
When the colonial government is acknowledging the presence of this Nubian community and even allocating them land, are they not doing anything to recognize them as Kenyans? Were they making any attempt to actually acknowledge them as Kenyans?
Actually, as Kenya was gaining independence, something profound was happening. You see, we had military commanders and we had colonial administrators. The military administrators valued the Nubians very much. But as Kenya, as we were approaching independence, there was a transition whereby now administering the protectorate was under the colonial administrators. There were Zungus who came like DOs and chiefs and DCs. These ones did not value the Nubians community. And our theory, this is a theory, we believe that the British did not secure our land rights and other rights because of our small number. They believed that we would disappear among the local communities.
Would be assimilated.
Yes.
Over time.
Yes, over time.
And it happened in other places. It happened in places like Meru, in places like Kisii.
Yes.
The Nubians actually literally got assimilated and almost disappeared.
Yes.
But, the proud Nubian nation is retained in Kibra. It's still our capital city, so to speak.
How come they did not get assimilated in Nairobi?
In Nairobi, because remember Nairobi by nature,
there were no natives.
There are no natives. And as then, what will happen as Nairobi was being developed, the reason why Kibra became a slum, Nairobi, the Nubians were very, very accommodative. And Kibra was a fairly safe place. In fact, I would say a lot of the people who came during the rural-urban migration of the late 70s and early 80s, most people, Kibra was their first landing point. And as a result, we never really got assimilated, but we welcome people and we integrated with them.
You accommodated.
And we accommodated them. And there's a lot of intermarriage and so on and so forth, but we still retain our identity as the Nubians. Yes.
Ibrahim,
Yes.
you're fourth generation.
Yes.
No. He's fourth generation.
I'm fifth.
You're
He's
fifth. So you're fourth generation
Yes, I'm
Nubian.
fourth generation.
So the first generation Nubians were doing what you told us. They were farming.
No, they were the soldiers. The first
they were
generation were the actual soldiers
Yes.
with their families.
The second
Farmers.
were the ones that were farmers and grazing. Third and fourth, at what point did they stop now farming and grazing?
When
on
there's
this
no land, you cannot graze. When there's no land, you cannot farm.
So what did they start doing?
So they ended up.
What was the
doing-
economic activity?
They ended up farming the Nubian gene, the famous Nubian gene, Weregi. It became the big economic activity for the Nubians, especially in the 60s, 70s. And then, fortunately, there was a bit of reform. They stopped the alcoholism. Now they became more of landlords, but slum landlords, slum millionaires, so to speak. And of course, land is limited. You become a slum. You are not getting educated, and other people are moving on. As a result, we became a marginalized community. You cannot get identity cards. We lost out in the Kenyan dream, so to speak.
Fast forward to 2023.
Yes.
We have a constitution, we have a National Land Commission, we have a constitution that recognizes communal land and all. What is the status of this 4,197.9 acres?
Can I take you back to history?
All right.
The agitation for this land, as Dr. said, started during the colonial period. And I want to take you to 1963. In 1963, the Langata constituency elections for the MP was between Joseph Murumbi and a Nubian, Ratib Hussein. And you recall that later Joseph Murumbi became vice president.
Yes.
You see now, the Kanu establishment of the time convinced our Wazes to vote for Joseph Murumbi and not Ratib Hussein, on the understanding that Murumbi will settle all our issues. So once Murumbi ascended he became an MP, he also had problems with the government and he resigned. Then, fast forward to 1970, the MP was in place at that time, Honorable, the late Yunus Ali, who is my late father, tabled a motion in Parliament for the allocation of the remaining land to the Nubian community.
Remaining land.
Remaining land.
497.
At that time, it was 1,200 acres in 1970.
Some 3,000 acres has gone
Had already gone.
into Ngumo and others.
So Parliament passed the motion, and the then Minister for Housing, Charles Rubia, was directed to survey the land and issue titles to the Nubian community.
This is 1971?
1970. This has not happened to date. Fast forward, in the year 2003, the Nubians staged a very big demonstration in Nairobi, Maandamano. Yeah. They went to the High Court, they went to the British Embassy. Then, after seeing no results, they filed a case at the African Peoples and Human Rights Court in the Gambia in the year 2006. After 6 years, in 2012, the court gave a favorable ruling in favor of the Nubian community. It advised the Kenya government to acknowledge the Nubian land rights over Kibra
And citizenship.
for the 4,197.9 acres. By then, only 750 was remaining.
How much?
750 acres was remaining.
Which year was this?
This was 2012. Yeah. So now,
It was a landmark ruling, by
Yes.
the way.
so the government now was pressurized to enter into negotiation with the Nubian community. Then there was negotiation, local leaders got involved, local politicians, the Nubian community. So people agreed that the Nubians would take 300 acres and leave the remaining 400 acres to the other communities who had settled there.
Because where do they go? So that they can do slum upgrading under
Yes.
the government.
Yes.
The 300 for the Nubians to settle in it,
Yes.
organize themselves,
Yeah.
and follow up on the compensation for the 497 as per the court ruling, which is still pending to date. Although the government has kind of acknowledged it, but yet to take action on
But
it.
should the compensation then not have been even earlier? Because according to what Carter did,
Yes.
did Carter not indicate that even as land was being developed by the government, the Nubians were owed compensation?
He did.
Yes.
You know, all these places like Impala Club, Jamhuri, all these areas,
Kenya
they're supposed to be
Science.
developed, and Kenya Science, they're supposed to be developed and paid. But People are just being evicted.
Even the club.
Even the club.
Yeah. Harlequins.
Yes, Harlequins. Yes.
Nubian land.
Yes. But they got no compensation at all. In fact, a classic example, when Ayani was developed, they developed 500 houses. Only 30 were given to Nubians, and all the 30 were Nubians who were connected for the day. And that's why whenever I talk about development, guys are very, very edgy, very, very skeptical, because they don't trust government.
They don't trust that they'll actually get anything.
Yes.
Let's take a break. 28 minutes to 8. Kenya's biggest conversation is having a conversation this morning about the Nubian land rights. Why Nubians are edgy over Kibra slum upgrading projects. Ibrahim Yunis is the Secretary General of the Kenya Nubian Council of Elders. Dr. Ahmed Kalebi is the chairman of a task force on the operationalization of the redevelopment and affordable housing project in the same area. As we take this break, DSTV wants to remind you something.
It's the holidays, and there's quite a lot in terms of what your kids can enjoy into the August holidays. DSTV's wonder-filled world of great content across all kinds of channels. The Disney Channel offering up some great entertainment every day between 4 o'clock and then again at 5:55 p.m. and then well into the weekend. Every hour there's something for kids to enjoy. All you need to do is download the My DSTV app or dial *423# and get into the wonderful world of entertainment with DSTV.
This is... When it comes to service, delivery matters. And at Standard Courier Service, we deliver on time and never take forever, without losing your packages or taking you in circles. So you never have to keep guessing if you made the right choice for your deliveries, because we never cut corners when it comes to you. And get it all countrywide by dialing 0793 599 684 for the Standard Courier Services. Efficient, flexible, 24/7.
Everybody telling me to. Everybody telling me to. Una bahali navaa kwenda ndani zain. Sweet fulani shwako psa Kawasaki. Jeke masanse hawatutaki. Oh, oh, yeah, my love.
The tour.
Oh, my love. Mix. Lazima nikuweke, kielewe, lazima nikuweke. I'm unavailable and no they see me. Put your hands up in the air.
Every weekday morning, every weekday morning from 9 to 10 a.m., we take you to East Africa.
Ninamchua aliye mwamba. Jesus, you they do wonder.
Across the globe and get you all praised up. We bring you the biggest choirs from the 254 and across the borders. Tendereza, only on KTN. Welcome home.
Chicken can be very interesting because it's a domestic animal, and domestic animals, their waste can be used in planting things like manure.
And the pumpkin also helps in the digestion of the stomach. So once you eat the pumpkin, it's not easy for you to get sick. It's not easy for you to feel pain on the stomach.
At Stima Sacco, we are a reflection of you. We are a stable, financially sound institution providing tailor-made services to add value to your life, time, and money. We are guided by your aspiration. We are designed to match your ambition. We are Stima Sacco, a true reflection of you.
4,197.9 acres to about 750 acres, which is also still coming to about 300 acres.
288 now. Even the 300 was reduced to 288. That's why you talk of the 288.
Those 2 acres are for roads.
12 acres. No, the 12 acres was the court, some church, the DC office, and some grabbed pieces of land by some individuals.
Okay, tell us about those 288 acres. Where are they?
So the 280 acres now, if you know Kibra, there is this, when you get to Kibra from Ngong Road, there is the DC office.
Yes.
The DC's office.
Yes.
Pale kwa DC.
Yes.
If you turn right, it borders with Moi Girls.
Yes.
And that will go all the way to the entrance to the law court, there where the particular petrol station was, Toy Market. And then you go to Karanja Road. So Karanja Road and the estate there, which is actually supposed to be called Salama Estate. Karanja is one of those guys who built things and gave it their names.
Okay.
And they call it Karanja Estate, grabbed the land and never gave the Nubians much. Then it goes all the way to Katoikera. Katoikera,
Yep.
Kisumundogo. So there is a river there. That river runs all the way to Shilanga, the Nairobi Dam.
Yes.
And then back this way, there's another river that comes between Lainshaba all the way back to the golf course. So we border the golf course and then you join back to DC office. So that kind of almost like a shoe-shaped map. Yes.
That's actually a big one.
Yes, quite big. 288 acres.
Yeah. Yes. But in the scheme of things, it is a small piece of land.
It's a sliver. It's not even small. If we were to talk about the value of the land as it was originally given,
yes.
If we start with 4,000 acres and we remove 3,300, so 3,700 acres has gone with the wind. If we were to look at, that's where I'm starting.
Yes.
The 97, I've decided to patia serikali. So 204,000.
Yeah.
What would the value of that land be? There's a reason why I'm asking.
Yes.
If you were to ask the government to pay you
Yes.
in cash,
Yes.
that would be a very tall order.
However,
However, they can compensate you in kind.
yes.
Because government does have land.
Yes.
What is the value of that land?
So the value of the land, Kibra is actually prime land. And
It
it's
doesn't
about-
get more prime.
Yes, and we are talking about undeveloped land is between 80 to 120 million per acre. So if you use 100 million per acre for
Times 4,000.
yes, yes, about
100 million times 4,000.
about 4 trillion, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Now, have you pursued that avenue to
Yes,
ask the government to compensate you with land in kind?
We're actually talking to the government. We need compensation in kind. We need compensation in cash.
Yes.
One of the biggest challenges, for somebody in my generation, I'm among the very fortunate few who, probably being a bookworm and all that kind of things, I managed to go to school, get to become a doctor. But I have so many of my colleagues, my age mates, who are much brighter than me. But because of living in a very marginalized, impoverished society, they never made it in life. So actually what we are looking at first and foremost is economic empowerment. So can we get compensation and recognition in a way that can allow for economic empowerment of the people? That's the most important
What
thing.
would recognition look like?
Recognition, first of all, is actually official recognition by government. Like what happened with the Pemba, with
As
the
a tribe.
Makonde, as a tribe.
Wait a moment.
Yes.
The Nubians haven't gotten it.
No, we don't have official recognition as a tribe. It's just fortunate that the government, for some reason, under the current president and the previous president, when the president was the deputy president then, they actually recognized and gave us a title with the name of Kenya Nubian Community Land, Kibra Nubian Community Land Trust. But as a tribe, we are not recognized.
Okay. Can I ask, in terms of documentation,
Yes.
when we talk about ownership of identity,
Yes.
The Nubian community will get, you have IDs, will have IDs, right?
Very few of us have IDs.
Is it? And why is that?
The reason is, actually, Nubians are the only inland tribe, not a border tribe, that have to go through vetting processes. when you apply for an ID, even my son who just turned 18 last year, when he was getting an ID after finishing Form 4, I mean, I had to get my grandfather, his grandfather's birth certificate, his grandmother's birth certificate, my ID, and it was still a tall order until I actually had to get my civil service ID as a doctor, and that's when things became fast. Now, there are many Nubians who cannot access anything in this country because they cannot get...
They don't have an ID.
They don't have the commendation. And because you've been born at home, you don't even have a birth notification. Yeah. So you are actually a stateless citizen, and it's happening in this country. Although the president has spoken about it and said this has to stop. But because we don't have that recognition, we are treated as foreigners in this land.
So you mentioned, I mean...
Actually, it's worse than foreigners.
It's worse than
Yes,
that.
worse than that, yes.
Just so a few months ago, and maybe towards last year, we did see the Shona, we saw the Pemba, and those groups then be recognized officially as Kenyan tribes.
Yes.
We're adding to the number.
Yes. Even Indians.
And
even India,
Asians,
even Muzungus.
Right?
Yes.
So as this recognition process then happened, of course, the details of that are privy. Are there any conversations about this happening? I mean, surely there must be rumblings. We've talked, the president, yes, indeed, has said this kind of maltreatment must stop. So is there chatter that something could be cooking? That could say the Nubian community could be a tribe soon.
There's a lot of chatter, and I want to start with whatever Kenokoth, my friend, and his brother who succeeded him in Parliament actually went through the motions until Parliament passed that motion and approved. Now the only thing which was left was for execution by the executive under the former president, but it never happened. Now the current president actually spoke in State House and he mentioned it and he made it a cabinet priority and said this should go on. Now, in his speech, he said the Nubian community leaders should come together and finish this process with the government. But you can imagine when you have a disenfranchised, traumatized society, even to organize themselves can be quite a problem. And that's where we are. So we are hoping that the Kenya Nubian Council of Elders can actually take the leadership and engage government and have this process finalized, because it's basically a finalization of the process.
Of a process.
Yes.
To recognize them as a tribe,
yes.
And yet you're not a tribe. We are a tribe. You're a community of many sub-tribes.
Sub-tribes make a tribe.
Okay.
So we are a tribe.
You're a tribe.
Yes. We talk the same language. We have the same culture. Basically, 100% the same religion. We are a tribe, but when you trace back to
you come from different parts.
The Nuba Hills, we actually have different villages or different communities, yes.
Ibrahim,
yes.
How many are you now? So we started with 396 soldiers.
Yes.
How many are you now?
In Kibra alone, the current estimate we have is 60,000. In Kibra alone. Countrywide, we're over 100,000. And I want to add something to what Dr. said. The paradox, the way government takes us around. In the year 2009, the former minister for planning gave us a letter saying that we are the 43rd tribe.
You have a letter?
Yes, we have a letter for census purposes.
Right.
That we are going to be given a code that will now be known as the 43rd tribe.
Which year was this?
2009
During the
during the Grand Coalition government. Okay. Unfortunately, this information was not cascaded to other government departments. Like if you go to the National Registration Bureau, the Nubians are still considered as others. They don't have a code. So as others. And now the issue of vetting. By the way, the issue of vetting is very serious. I'm vetted. My father was vetted. My son is vetted. My grandson is being vetted. Does it make sense?
What is vetting?
It doesn't make sense.
That's what I was talking about. You have to go through a series of
Get an ID,
documents,
for example.
and you have to go to sit before a panel.
Yeah.
In fact, my son has a very profound question. Somebody that they went to primary school together with, to secondary school together with, all that person needed was to get one ID or photocopy of any of their parents. So she just came with the mother's ID and their school document. Any school document, just those two documents. You go to the chief, they stamp, you go to the bureau and you get registered. Him, despite me being, everybody knows me, literally, I was there with him, but he was still being told, you have to go get this and this. And he was even told to bring things like certificate of achievement in school. I mean, why is that? That's like blatant discrimination. But I want to add something that about the numbers. The 100,000 or 120,000 we're talking about are the people who have identified themselves as Nubians. We have a lot of assimilated Nubians who don't want even to say they're Nubians, because when you say you're a Nubian, when you're going to get your ID, if you are in Kibos, you know Kibos, there are a lot of Nubians in Kibos. If you rather say you're a Luo, because Nubians look a lot like Luos, and things. But the minute you say you're a Nubian, then you become others.
You lose status immediately.
You lose status immediately. So we believe that we are much more than even the 120,000 we estimate.
Now, this slum upgrading project, why was a task force created?
So the task force was created very simply because the government wanted to continue with what they used to call the slum upgrading project. Now they're calling it the affordable housing project, because slum upgrading is basically lipstick on a pig. You are trying to upgrade a slum and it will remain a slum. So people didn't like it. And now what they said is they wanted to now do on the 400 acres where there's Raila Estate, Soweto A, now there's Soweto B. So the president said this is his priority. When he came to launch the project in near High Rise, Soweto B, then he says, can we have the same happening in the other land? Then you also know this land actually is private land, because the government of the day in 2013 issued a title to a trust by the Nubians. Then he says, okay, in that case, can we talk to them so that we develop it? And that's when they contacted me, and we put them in touch with the Nubian caucus, which is all the organized groups and the elders and the trustees. And when we were discussing how do we go about engaging, because the guys are poor, the guys don't have capacity. So the government then said, how can we help you guys? Of course, the first thing is the guys go like, no, we don't trust government. So I really had a lot to talk to them and say,
to your community,
to my community, and tell them, look, we have to work with government one way or another. Now, in the process, then we said, can we have something that will be tangible, not the simple letters from somebody, and then that's when, because government works with gazettement. Whatever is gazetted is law.
Yes.
So fortunately, the PS Hinga, whom I came to know and I really like very much as a person, he said that what you guys require is a task force, and we'll bring for you guys all the government departments and counties. So we have in that task force community members and literally director of survey, director of planning, director of this, so that you guys sit on a table and assess what is the community has done on its land for the last 10 years and what they want to do, and how can government help you. And basically that's where we are as a task force. And we had a 9 months tenure ending on 5th of November, 6 months gone. Actually, yesterday was a very big occasion, because we went to the community with our proposals and our recommendations, and the community endorsed it. They have formed a team that is community-led, that is now supposed to take the process forward of there's a master plan that we have come up with, there is a development and finance strategy that we have come up with, and also we need them to organize themselves in terms of their own trust deed, in terms of the legal structures that will engage government and developers and private partners.
In a nutshell, how will the community benefit from all this?
So the community owns the land.
Yes, they do, but how will they benefit?
So now, by developing this land as the owners, they actually be able to participate in that economic wealth creation, because before they never had tenure, but now they have the tenure of the land. Just like you having your piece of land, let's say if you want to come and develop a mall in your piece of land, we enter into a partnership.
To a JV.
Yes, a JV or whatever loan agreement, then you become actually an economic participant in that. Not like before, where, for example, Harlequins, unaambia utoke tu.
Okay, let me ask the question a different way.
Yes.
It's the same question though.
Yes.
How do the individual members of the community benefit? You said participate.
Yes.
Participate how?
So
benefit.
Yes.
Benefit how? Meaning, I am part of this thing. You're putting up this structure. You're building this thing. Yeah. How exactly am I going to benefit?
In a nutshell.
In a nutshell, granular.
Granular nutshell.
Yes.
Think about it. It might not be the best example in the context, political context, but they are shareholders. They are shareholders of this trust, this land, the value, whatever project it is, they are shareholders. Whatever benefits will accrue in terms of wealth, they'll either get dividends, they'll get allocation of benefits or distribution of benefits, because they are members of the trust.
Let me break this down even further.
Yes.
When you build houses,
yes,
are they going to be given first options?
Not only first option, they will be given houses.
Free.
Right.
Yes, because free in quotes, but remember, it is give and take, because you get a house, but it is part of a bigger project.
Okay.
All right.
Dr. Kalebi, is there recognition, even as all this is going on, is there still the current recognition that this land, whether it has been encroached upon or not for development, still belongs to the community?
So
is there recognition of that?
The 288,
because if there isn't,
yes.
all these things that we're talking about, will they be recognized? Will they be given? Will
Yes.
they? So is that recognition
So
still
two
play?
aspects.
Yeah.
Aspect number one is the 288. That is recognized because we actually have a title and a PDP, a physical development plan, and is actually gazetted. So the 288 is recognized, and the government of the day has
As
recognized
community
it.
land.
As community, it's actually private land because of the way it was structured under a trust. So the members of the community, the descendants of the 396 families, they are members of that
trustees.
trust, the beneficiaries of that trust. So it's a trust land for perpetual succession. Now, the 4197, it is recognized because we actually have a court ruling, a judicial ruling that is basically binding to the government. So the government has to come at some point and make sure it compensates. So there is recognition of the 4197, but we don't have it yet. But the 288 tuko nao mkononi.
Mkona title.
Tuko na title mkononi.
So back to CT's question. So if I'm assuming that after yesterday's meeting,
Yes.
it is clear that the community, Eunice, has said yes to development of affordable housing on this land.
Affordable housing and basically a city,
And
not
a
just
city.
houses. We are looking at commercialization and rest.
Like Railway City now will have
Better than railway city.
Nubian City.
Think of a Dubai in Kibra.
well.
A small
Fourth
Dubai in
CBD.
Kibra.
It's supposed to be the fourth CBD.
Yes.
Mambo kubwa.
Ukiangalia TORs,
Eh.
the first thing is how can we ensure that the community get value for money? As what City was saying, how does that the community get? What value do they get? Number two is to unleash the potential,
Of the land.
yeah, and preserve wealth for future generation of Nubians.
Not just housing. Yes.
Number three, build a halal city, modeled on Islamic culture and traditions, but smart with all
Smart
the
city.
modern facilities.
Futuristic.
Right. So this is what that's the TOR for the task force.
Yes. Yes.
And the community has said yes,
They've embraced
yes to these things.
Yes.
So the next thing is you come up with a plan.
The plan is there.
The plan now is there.
is to fine tune the plan up to the roads levels, the granular level details, as he says.
Yes, those aren't even granular. Roads, infrastructure, that comes that territory. See, my concern is actually the future generation.
Yes.
This generation is fighting for something that was promised 4 generations ago.
Yes.
You will get all these benefits. How then do you ensure that your young people come up to speed to the 21st century and on an equal footing in terms of opportunity and education like everybody else? How will this investment benefit them? How will you ensure that this is something that will change the lives of that community completely?
Whatever we do now,
Yes.
we are doing it in the name of the trust. All our descendants are members of the trust. It is in perpetuity. And that is anchored in the trust deed and in law. Yes.
You know, I'm killing this point. We were asking it over and over.
Kabisa,
I am looking at the so-called reserves that in the US they set up for what they call the native communities.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the natural resources in those communities.
Yes.
I'm looking at the benefit that the national government, not just individual states, have benefited from this.
Yes.
And I'm looking at the communities of those Native Americans and how disenfranchised they have been despite all these things that we are saying.
Yes.
And theirs, it's like a state within a state.
Yes.
Okay? It's with that in mind that even as these things are given,
Yes.
even as they are proposed and they look good,
Yes.
the fail-safes, how will you ensure? Because anything that has to do with the government, Hinga's a good man and he means well and he will do what he says. Hinga's not going to be there forever.
Yes.
Somebody else is going to come along with clever ideas, just like you lost that other land. Somebody else is going to come up with an idea.
The difference is, CT, is that in this instance, we actually have a title, and that title is under a trust. What we are doing, actually part of the legal structuring which the community has endorsed, we actually have a governance structure, a membership structure, decision structure. Nothing will be decided outside that community. It's the community members who decide. The government job in this case is what we actually engage with them. Any private developer, even yourself, if you come, itabidi onge nao. The people are supreme. Actually, it starts almost like the Kenya Constitution with the people. The beneficiaries of this 288 acres are basically the supreme in this instance. Yes.
Terry, the land buying companies in this country,
Yes.
of communities that don't have the problems that you have.
Yes.
Some of them are in court today. From the time they got that land, God knows how many decades ago.
We know about those cases.
Precisely.
Yes.
So you see where I'm coming from.
The land cannot be sold. That's part of the trust deed. It cannot be sold.
I see.
Yes. There are a lot of I agree with you. There are a lot of safeguards, and one of the things we're actually looking at is, the issue of gentrification. How do we ensure there's no gentrification? In fact, we are going even a step further. It's not just the original the descendants of the original Shamba pass holders. We're also looking at other Nubians, because our forefathers were very welcoming. We have a lot of Nubians from all over the place who have settled in Kibra. We actually have other tribes. How do we make sure that this project benefits all of them? And that's the conversation, the difficult conversation I've been having, to the point of almost being stoned literally by different quarters. But I'm saying, and this is a summary, this project 288 is a very big project in prime land. It can accommodate all of us and still have room for more. And the more we do in terms of economic wealth creation, the better. Because it's not just about housing. You know what happened in California? California, you might not know California, near Pumwani. People are given houses, but they are too poor to even afford the free houses, literally.
Yes.
Because you move there, before you are in a pit latrine, now you have a flush toilet. You don't have water to flush it. You need to buy electricity. So it is not just simply housing. It is much more than that. And that's the discussion we have been having for the last 6 months. There's a very, very elaborate master plan, a very, very elaborate development and finance plan, but the first point was the community itself had to take ownership of it. Now our job for the next 2 months is to work with them, hold their hands, bring all the relevant people on the table that they can work with, but they must retain control
of the land. Implementation. Are there timelines and guarantees for implementation of this plan?
As a task force, we are supposed to give recommendations.
But then he's a member of the task force.
I'm also a member of the task force working under him. As a task force, we are going to make recommendations on implementation, because our terms of reference says we are to give a comprehensive development strategy that will include implementation. It also includes putting a framework for monitoring and evaluation. These are the details we are working on with the experts.
Okay. Wish you all the best, and it's a very interesting conversation, and actually good to know. But 288 is what we're working on now. You still have some 4,000 acres to deal with. All the best with that as well.
We have to fight for that. And I'm very glad you raised this to the national level. And thank you very much. And congratulations on your 4 years. Although they say you have to reach 5 years to now know that you're secure.
And
once you have 5 years, it's unlikely that you will. That's a
Now is when we're on slippery ground.
You're almost there. So 5 years, then you can celebrate.
Dr. Ahmed Kalebi is the chairman of the task force on operationalization of the redevelopment and affordable housing project in Kibra, and Ibrahim Yunis is the Secretary General of the Kenyan Nubian Council of Elders. They've been here. We're talking about, now we're calling it the Dubai world of the Kibra.
Dubai in Kibra.
The Dubai in Kibra. That's the plan going forward.
Inshallah, as we say.
Keep it here for more conversations coming up. Good morning. It's 8 a.m.